Listen, there is a riddle nested at the root of the stars, pulsing through every act of creation and every shadow we fear. The Archons, those so-called rulers of the cosmos, are neither simple tyrants nor mere watchers over fate. Gnostic scriptures whisper their names with a tremble, stirring echoes from the velvet black behind the sun. Are they our cosmic overlords, chords in the grand symphony of destiny? Or have they forged prisons made of law matter and mind, trapping the spark of spirit in cages shaped like flesh? To consider their role is to plunge into layers of myth, philosophy, and fevered rebellion. A descent mapped most famously in the fever-drenched pages of the Nag Hammadi library, unearthed in 1945. The question splits history like lightning. Are these Archons, the rulers behind the veil, servants of cosmic order, or jailers maintaining a divine status quo? In the Hypostasis of the Archons, preserved from the Gnostic Gospels, these entities appear as wardens, agents of a lesser blind god, the Demiurge, tasked not with illuminating the soul, but obscuring its origins. Yet even here the shape of their power flickers ambiguous. Some ancient voices painted them as necessary architects of the world's structure, cosmic scaffolders, without whom existence would dissolve into chaos. Others, with the acid of spiritual revolt, depicted them as deceivers, masters of illusion, forging reality itself into a cruel labyrinth. Through generations, from Alexandria's scholars to the hush-toned heretics hunted in shadowed corners of Rome, the Archons were reinterpreted over and again. Early Gnostic texts, like the Gospel of Philip, do not name them outright, but embed their presence in parable and riddle, inviting only the most persistent to glimpse their shapes between lines. Later, in the Mandean cosmologies of Mesopotamia, we see echoes of these rulers ripple outward, shedding old mythic skins, yet always circling the same central dread: who guards the gate of reality, and what price do they demand for passage? Take heed. These are no far-flung fables. The concept of the Archon whispers through the corridors of history, seeping into medieval magic grimoires and the uneasy dreams of modern thinkers alike. Are they part of you, the silent voice inside that enforces the mundane order, or have they always been outside, tightening the bonds of your spirit's exile? The paradox haunts us still. Cosmic rulers, necessary scaffolds of reality, or prison guards drunk on stolen power, stand at the threshold and ask whose laws hold you captive, and what happens if you remember the world beyond. 7 shadows cast against the trembling veil. That is the forbidden truth the ancients only dared to whisper. Not angels, not demons, the Archons. Their names cut like secret keys in the lock of the cosmos. Yaldabaoth, Sabaoth, Astaphaios, Eloaios, Horaios, Adonaios. In the Nag Hammadi library, smuggled out of the sands by hands both desperate and defiant, we find these names etched in the Apocryphon of John, a document condemned, burned, yet never silenced. What are these 7 rulers, if not the authors of this world's very prison? They are not gods in their own right, but impostors, cosmic enforcers beneath the fractured throne of the Demiurge. Each Archon is paired with the planets, their power echoing the older gods of Babylon, of Greece, of Rome, their faces repainted with every age's fears. Yaldabaoth, the lion-faced storm, rules the sun, his breath forges false light and shadow. Io twines around the moons, cycles the serpent, deceiving time itself. Sabaoth, once a name for the Lord of Hosts, mutates, flipping from angelic might to a kind of cosmic warden. Is it any wonder that Sabaoth's transformation, as chronicled in On the Origin of the World, teeters between revolt and submission, an echo of every human soul wrestling with authority? Their powers are not miracles, they are manipulations. Each Archon administers a layer of psychic gravity, the distortion of fate, law, desire, fear, shaping the very fabric of dreams and days. The Church Fathers like Irenaeus in his Against Heresies called this doctrine poison. Heresy. But why use poison if the vessel is empty? Why fear the map unless it points to a locked gate? Symbols of the Archons bleed through medieval grimoires and Renaissance magic sigils traced in secret planetary metals, feared and revered Kabbalistic diagrams. Each a reminder that power can corrupt from behind the veil, not merely in the open. Their animal faces, lion, serpent, dragon, are not decorations but warnings. They embody hunger, cunning, domination. Some saw these visages as the real masks behind Zeus, Saturn, and Mars, suggesting that the gods of Olympus were not liberators but architects of the labyrinth. And so the Archons remain, rulers sculpted from stolen myths, wielding planetary powers corrupted by millennia of reinterpretation and suppression. Their names are forgotten prayers. Their symbols are the scars of conquest tattooed across the spirit of the world. If we remember their names, do we break the spell, or only become aware of its strangling grip? What happens when the rulers are known and the prison's blueprints are laid bare? Some truths are not hidden, they are exiled. And so we stir awake a forbidden memory, the war above, not in heaven nor hell, but in the trembling chambers of the soul. Archons versus eons. The battle for the divine spark. Gaze behind the world's gilded mask, and you find trembling hands on cosmic keys. Rulers, jailers, thieves. Who are the Archons? Who are their mirror foes, the resplendent eons? Gnostic scriptures, buried and risen like ghosts called Nag Hammadi, whisper in riddles of this conflict. Here the Archons stalk the celestial bureaucracy, seven powers planetary mechanistic, forged not from light, but from deficient imitation. The first apocalypse of James names them outright Yaldabaoth, Sabaoth, Adonaios, Eloaios, Horaios, Astaphaios, and Eloaios, the great jailers above the heavens. They are not merely demons nor gods, but architects of a counterfeit order. They snare the world and weave the veil called fate. Yet opposing them, luminous and serenely distant, stand the eons, emanations of the inscrutable source, Sophia's brood, whose mission is nothing less than the return of lost divinity to itself. In their mythic origin, the Archons are cosmic rebels born of an error, Sophia, misbegotten yearning as sung in the Apocryphon of John. Not evil in essence, but blind, ignorant, hungry to rule what they can never understand. They built the world as prison, not as play, imposed laws, cycles, forms. Yet their rivals, the eons, beckon like memory just out of reach, calling the spark within humanity to rise, to remember its place in a reality before matters change. This is not merely theology. This is drama baked into ancient cosmos, Babylonian astrology, where planetary gods constrict, human fate bleeds into Judeo-Greek angelology, where powers preside over spheres. Across centuries, the names change, but the mechanism holds. Archons as rulers in Paul's first letter to the Corinthians became the blueprint-veiled powers who crucify the Lord of glory, mistaking light for weakness. Are we pawns or prisoners? Is the flesh our tomb or the battlefield for something older than time? When you see the silent pressure in your dreams, the cold bureaucracy in your daily ritual, whose hands move the dials? Whose war echoes in your bones? Eon calls to spark, Archon seeks to quiet it. The battle never ended. The question lingers, electric, unyielding, which voice in you is remembering and which is trying to make you forget. It was never a legend. It was a warning, echoing from the vaults of the Nag Hammadi library, torn from the grip of oblivion in 1945, carried on the tongues of mystics and heretics. They called them Archons, rulers, jailers, devourers of light. Not demons in the simple sense, not gods either, but cunning wardens appointed by a jealous architect. The Gospel of Philip calls them powers who rule the world, shaping perception itself, engineering reality as a labyrinth. Here's the forbidden contradiction: to the unawakened, these tyrants are invisible, but to the soul who learns to see, their fingerprints are everywhere. In every repeated error, every gnawing doubt, every system that denies the living spark. Search the ancient Gnostic texts, and you'll find their presence camouflaged in dream logic and encoded parable. The first Apocalypse of James warns, "These Archons will interrogate you. Do not fear them." The Archons are described as cosmic bureaucrats feeding on our ignorance, erecting false heavens. Their essence, as the Apocryphon of John reveals, is imitation, not creators, but counterfeiters spinning a tapestry of distractions to keep us transfixed by shadows. Historically, the word archon meant magistrate in Greek, but Gnostics twisted it with holy rebellion, naming their spirit prison wardens after the city rulers of their own age. Underneath, they glimpsed a cosmic structure, a matrix of authority feeding on submission. Recognizing archonic control is to pierce through appearances. When you sense the world closing in, rigidity replacing on novelty, branded as heresy, compassion suffocated by bureaucracy, Gnostics say the Archons are at work. They manifest not just as entities, but as systems, habits, closed minds. Carl Jung himself, upon reading the Nag Hammadi scrolls, saw in the Archons the psychic tyrannies that choke the soul, internalized dogmas, self-doubt, the crushing weight of soulless routine. History records the names, but gnosis demands you feel the chains. So how do you awaken to their game? Gnostic tradition from ancient Egypt to the battered scrolls of the Coptic desert urges vigilance. Dream interrogation, symbolic questioning, the relentless search for the crack in the cosmic mask. Watch for patterns that feed on fear, for narratives that suffocate wonder, for voices that demand worship without love. The Gnostic did not merely name the enemy, they trained the soul for recognition, for the holy act of seeing through the masquerade. Are you awake enough to see the wires? Or are you content to dance beneath their strings, a puppet praised for dreaming small? This is the secret they hoped you never ask, the revelation shrouded in whispers and fire. What if liberation was illegal in this reality guarded by entities older than all empires? Beneath the surface of visible things, the Gnostic sages gave us a blueprint of jailbreak, and its cipher was called liberation, spiritual, seismic, heretical. You seeker are standing at the threshold of the broken gates. In the early centuries, when the desert winds still carried the cries of the crushed, the Gnostic teachers lit a lamp against the powers. In the Gospel of Philip, a scroll hidden then unearthed at Nag Hammadi, the call was unmistakable. It is not possible for anyone to see anything of the things that actually exist unless they become like them. This is not the way for the world to become manifest. The darkness, according to the Gnostics, was not a natural order but an imposition, a system run by cosmic jailers, systematic, relentless. The Archons were not simply metaphors for oppression, but the architects of it, forging iron walls inner and outer. They told us, know yourself, but not just the self that walks and eats and prays. The deeper you, the sleeper within the dream, the spark that knows it was meant for more. Liberation was not a doctrine in the Gnostic eye. It was a collision between cosmic memory and active resistance. The Gospel of Thomas names this war in riddles. If you bring forth what is within you, what you bring forth will save you. To free oneself from the archontic maze was to recollect the divine spark, an ember ignited before the world was wound into the current order. Everything changed when the secret rites emerged, the prayers, sigils, and luminous codes designed to outwit the rulers and their labyrinth. The Gnostics did not petition the Archons. They learned to walk unseen, practiced remembering their higher lineage, and rejected the counterfeit world. The straight and narrow path became a razor through reality's fabrication. And yet the conspiracy is unfinished. What if the real walls are the ones we cannot see? The patterns of thought, the grids of habit and obedience. The Gnostics left us sacraments, passwords, and stories of those who slipped beyond the reach of cosmic wardens. Will you awaken the memory, tear the veil, and become as luminous as the eons? Or will you return silent while the Archons count the days of your forgetting? Hear the riddle, then decide. In a world built for spiritual captivity, what does it mean to truly break free? You've heard the lie that the rulers have vanished, dissolved into myth. But the Archons, those cosmic wardens of the Gnostic dream, abide in shadow, stitching power from the edges of forgotten scrolls and fractured prayers. They are not gone, only disguised. In the Apocryphon of John, it was written that the Archons shaped the world not out of love, but out of blindness, spinning a counterfeit heaven to ensnare the luminous spark within humanity. This is no bedtime story. It is a trembling cipher carved across centuries, first sung in the dark chambers of antique Alexandria, then smuggled through the veins of exiled mystics and silenced prophets. Today the faces have changed, but the pattern persists. In every system that praises division, in every decree that blinds you to your own brilliance, the archonic fingerprint pulses. When Gnostic texts emerged from the sands of Nag Hammadi in 1945, scholar Jean Doris called their message a scandal to the guardians of order. Why? Because these scripts unveiled a forbidden geometry, the idea that ignorance itself could be enthroned, that our culture, our very thoughts, might be farmed by powers claiming legitimacy. But the tale does not calcify in antiquity. The drama is archetypal, rippling into the circuitry of modernity, in conspiracy in media, in the liturgy of algorithms. The ruler of this world, as echoed in the Gospel of John, is not some distant myth, but a recurring symbol for systems that traffic in illusion and authority. To the Gnostic, every age faces its Archons, new names, same chains. The Gnostic vision endures because it is not just a mythic warning. It is a manual for rebellion. It reminds you, the listener, that your spark is not a product of the prison, but a fragment of the uncreated realm from which all hope descends. So why do the Archons matter now? Because the battle is perennial and intensely personal. The old Greek word archon meant magistrate or lord. Today, it whispers through institutions, technologies, even the stories we tell ourselves. The lore calls you not to paranoia, but to gnosis, to strip illusion from truth, to courageously seek your origin beyond the rulers of your mind. If the Archons persist in hiding the divine within matter, then the question remains, in our age of noise and distraction, who among us will remember to look beyond the mask? It was never just a legend. It was always a boundary, a riddle coiled around the roots of reality itself. Who rules this cosmos and who serves its deeper shadows? Gaze behind the curtain spun by time, and a name slithers forth: Archons. Rulers, gatekeepers. Their presence stains the oldest Gnostic scriptures, those needed forbidden, hunted codices brimming with warnings and keys. What the devout called angels, what the philosophers called cosmic laws, the Gnostics dared name oppressors. In the whispering deserts of antiquity, among the tattered scrolls of Nag Hammadi, we meet them face to face. The Archons, as the Apocryphon of John recounts, fashioned this world like blind potters, mistaking imitation for creation, authority for true origin. They are not the gentle stewards of your Sunday school lullabies. No, these are cosmic middle managers, spiritual TSA agents, enforcing false order on a universe suffocating in imitation light. Their tale rises not from one night, but is the fossilized sediment of ages Babylonian star lords bearing planetary names, Hellenistic demons policing the thresholds of heaven's Hebrew, principalities and powers, that Paul of Tarsus called out their dominion unmasked, yet never dethroned. Even the church fathers in echoing fear and thunder preserved their shadows, warning against the authorities, who weave their sigils through law, through hunger, through forgetfulness. Each generation, each script etched into clay or parchment, became another crystal in a grid of concealment, another layer of silence pressed deep beneath memory. The shape-shifting mask of the Archon flickers through myth and scripture, always behind, always just out of reach, silent architects in the clockwork of fate. In every tradition, gleaming Zoroastrian cosmology, Stoic treatises, and even the Gnostic Gospel of Philip, this pattern persists: invisible architects haunted by lack, fashioning matter, and mind to distract and divide. There are the hidden hands that twist fate, the phantoms behind law and accident, both the rule makers and the jailers. But ask yourself now if the universe is a machine crafted by such rulers who profits from our sleep, who benefits when chaos is called order and freedom is recast as obedience. Has your longing for something beyond always been your own, or the trembling of a soul remembering what the Archons would have you forget? Listen, can you hear it? Beneath the noise, a summons, not a call to faith, but a call to memory. Somewhere in the echoing hall of forgotten selves, you glimpse them, not beasts, but blueprints carved into the bones of history, encoded in vibration. The Archons have mastered the art of concealment, but what happens when a single mind, your mind, dares to remember them for what they are? The first gate of awakening waits, half-shattered, humming. Will you step through or return to the sleep they designed? And still, they watch from below. They say the world was made for us in light and goodness, crafted by divine hands. But hear the forbidden contradiction in the smoky back rooms of spiritual memory. Another tale whispers, a tale of the Archons. Not the architects of beauty, but the hidden jailers of this reality. Who are these rulers who dared call the cosmos a prison? Listen well. In the battered scrolls found at Nag Hammadi in the Apocryphon of John, the names echo: Archon, ruler, authority. They govern the visible with invisible chains, not chains of iron, but lattices of forgetting, intricate as the web spun by the fates. Their dominion hums just beneath sensation, a static in the blood, a shiver in the mind's midnight hour. You sense it in moments of vertigo when the scaffolding of consensus reality flickers. Who first muttered their names in ruined sanctuaries when the temples were empty and only silence replied? Here in the electric shadows of Gnosticism, knowledge is not comfort but fire. The Gnostics saw the universe split, torn between luminous eons and the counterfeit glory of the Archons. This is not mere legend but spiritual revolt, a refusal to kneel before powers unseen. The Gnostic psyche was draped in dualism, the world, as a reflection caught in a trap, matter ruled by those who would keep you spiritually asleep. These are not gods in the sense of Olympus or Asgard, but cosmic administrators, bureaucrats of fate, jailers of consciousness. Evolution is marked in the palimpsest of myth. From Sumer's list of astral lords to Plato's world, soul fragments accumulate. The Babylonians, some say, mapped the gates between stars and imagined watchers at each threshold. Later, Paul in his letter to the Ephesians warned of cosmic powers over this present darkness. And the Gnostics gathered these fragments like black pearls, threading them into a warning, a shimmering map of spiritual entrapment. Each culture builds another layer in the spiral: Near Eastern intermediary spirits, Greek daemons, Jewish archangels, and beneath all a single vibration, the suppression of your divine memory. If the cosmos is a chessboard, the Archons move pieces not to win, but to prevent the soul from remembering its first forgotten home. Each law of nature became a lock, each institution a keeping place, their dominion spiritual bureaucracy. Pause. Ask yourself when you stare at the machinery of this world, government systems, even the silent tyranny of social expectation. Do you sense a hidden hand? Is the chain around your mind of your own design, or has it been forged for you link by rulers whose names echo from parchment to present? What if the greatest conspiracy is not what the Archons control, but what they want you to forget? What if behind every voice bidding you sleep there is the hush of ancient wardens, waiting, watching as you begin to remember? They said the world was made by gods, yet the first whispers from the shadowed mouths of antiquity spoke of rulers who were not divine but impostors. The Archons, they are not angels nor demons, but something far more unsettling. In the tongue of the Gnostics, Archon means ruler or authority, but let us tear at that veil. These were never benevolent lords, but cosmic wardens, guardians of boundaries, keepers of illusion. Every empire begins as myth, and every myth hides a prison. Stand with me now at the birth of control itself. In the beginning, long before Christ, before Plato's cave, before the echo of empire, civilizations sung of ordering spirits shaping the world beneath higher powers. In Sumer's bleeding clay, the Apkallu stood as mediators, not saviors, between mortals and gods. Move to Babylon, where Enuma Elish spun tales of Tiamat's chaos being cut and divided. Her broken form forged into the structure of the heavens, the ordered world kept in place by what? Authorities, guardians, echoes of the first Archons. Within ancient Egyptian, magic, the Jewet was overrun by gods who blocked the dead issuing tests, and barriers, their hieroglyphic names lost, but their function the blueprint for later Gnostic oppression. Even the mighty Book of the Dead, recited by trembling souls, sketches gates guarded by beings whose faces are erased by time, watchers not liberators. Then the Greeks. In Plato's Timaeus, the cosmos was sculpted by a craftsman, Demiurge, copying the eternal yet never touching its fire. Already the great illusion crystallizes a world that seems perfect but is only a shadow. This same Demiurge, as named in the words of the Gnostics centuries later, the hypostasis of the Archons preserved in the Nag Hammadi Codex, fashioned 7 servile rulers to govern each planetary realm. They do not liberate, they legislate. They do not create, they confine. They became arrogant, thinking themselves the only ones, the ancient text moans. Even Orphic hymns veiled in coded starlight murmur of hidden powers behind manifest gods, layers between divinity and the waking dream. What is this root? The Archons do not come from a single people or creed. They crawl up from our oldest terrors, that power might mask hollowness, that the cage might call itself the world. Reflected through Babylon, refracted in Egypt, resonating in Orphic mystery, embodied in Hellenistic cosmogony, the myth shatters into Gnostic suspicion. What if the rulers above us are not gods but jailers of the soul? So, seeker, I leave you with a trembling question as old as the stars, and nearly as heavy if the authors of order are but shadows cast by forgotten hands. Does escaping dominion mean shattering not the bars but the myth itself? Will you step beyond the appointed boundaries, or simply awaken into a deeper maze, a hymn still echoing in the silence, while the hidden wardens watch and wait from beneath the surface of the world? It began not with light but with fracture, creation by division, not by unity. We stand on a world sculpted by hands we will never see, governed by threats we only feel in the fibers of our spiritual bones. Here's the forbidden truth chanted through trembling centuries: creation in Gnostic vision is a crime scene. The architect, the demiurge, the craftsman, but never the true God, And from this flawed creator came his celestial brood, the Archons, the rulers, the cosmic jailers. Born of spiritual error, their story is not just myth. It's a suppressed chronicle echoing in the quiet corners of the Nag Hammadi library, sealed away for almost 2 millennia. Pause. Breathe with the ancients. For in the 3rd century's Gospel of Philip, the Archons are painted as the powers who kept us captive in matter and ignorance. In these blasphemous scrolls, the serpent is not only tempter but liberator. The Demiurge, a cosmic impostor, Yaldabaoth by name, is depicted as blind, arrogant, claiming, "I am God and there is no other." His arrogance is echoed and amplified by his spawn, a legion of forces decoding destiny, law, and flesh. The cosmos becomes a prison complex with the Archons, as wardens enforcing a sentence on the divine spark trapped in humanity. Their laws write the constellations, but their chains are psychic, entangling our very minds. This myth was not seeded by accident or mere discontent. It spread as a vibration, a forbidden pulse, through the labyrinths of ancient Alexandria and across the inked papyri of sects who endured persecution and silence. Its touch can be traced in the secret geometry of temple stones, in the whispered warnings of initiates who knew that to name the jailer was to risk annihilation. Layers upon layers like sediment at the riverbed of memory, and each layer a deliberate concealment. Not merely a flood, but an intentional silencing. Yet the evolution of their story twists through time. Echoes ring down from the Babylonian astrologers who mapped planetary spirits with power to bind fate to the rigorous rituals of the Magi, who named spirits and stars as cosmic rulers with their own hidden motives. And into Gnostic hands, these dark figures pass transformed from neutral cosmic administrators into adversaries. Symbolic, yes, but never merely metaphor. In the Pistis Sophia, another trace from the sands of Egypt, the Archons take names and faces, each a face of power between us and divinity, each a memory of the world's wound. In the echoes of Platonic thought, even there are hints of a craftsman distant from the true source, a pattern that reverberates across empires and centuries, locking the myth into the deep bedrock of collective dream. But here's the question, heavy as prophecy. What if everything you worshipped as order is beneath the veil a machine for suppression? What if the boundary between salvation and captivity hinges not on obedience but on awakening, on piercing through the cosmic veil spun by the Archons themselves? The world is not as it seems. There are cracks in the walls of the labyrinth. Who then will see beyond the cage and challenge the architects of our prison? And still, they watch from below. There is a text you were never meant to read, a gospel scorched at the edges, unearthed in the desert, whispering lines the orthodox dared not immortalize. The Nag Hammadi scriptures, found in earthen jars in 1945, buried as if the very sand wished to keep their ink hidden, explode the cosmic stage wide open. Within their brittle pages, the Archons emerge not as mere shadows, but as the masked engineers of illusion. Forget the silent guardians of heaven. Their true faces are regulators, impters, rulers of the spheres. In the apocalyptic account called the Hypostasis of the Archons, they are stamped as authorities, sevenfold cosmic warden kings who planted jealousy and desire into flesh-sowed confusion at the root. These parchments did not simply survive. They shimmered in silence, encoded with frequencies that pull at the marrow of memory. The texts vibrate like subterranean bells, sounding out reminders from a lineage of symbols, serpent coils, thunderous thrones, mirrors that refuse earthly reflection. To find the Archons penned not only in the Hypostasis of the Archons, but also cloaked in fragments of the Gospel of Philip and the Apocryphon of John, is to witness not just repetition but resonance. an ancient motif humming beneath the din of doctrine ready for recognition. Yet this is not where their tale begins. Long before dusty jars and heresy trials, echoes of these cosmic tyrants trickled through the older labyrinths of thought. Babylonian myth, Persian demonology, Platonic emanations. Each culture shaped them. The Babylonians named hostile spirits Archons, while in Hellenistic Egypt practitioners of theurgy invoked, directed, and resisted cosmic forces. Through centuries, the idea was recast: power above, power below, but always power behind the veil. Gnostic schools, spurred by Greek philosophical cosmology and Jewish angelology, gave these powers definition and purpose. The Nag Hammadi texts did not invent the Archons, but called them out charged and electrified. Listen, the Coptic tongue of the Apocryphon of John names them, paints them, numbers them. The ancient Greek roots, Archon, ruler, are not accidental. Scholars may call it syncretism. The soul knows it as a successive unveiling, a myth crawling through generations, always one name away from being forgotten. Now consider the drama of their evolution. Once subtle cosmic stewards, now prison architects, now soul-taxing judges of the afterlife. In Gnostic vision, they are agents of the Demiurge, the blind creator, garrisoned between the human spirit and the blinding pleroma above. They creep from cosmic administrators to cosmic jailers. And each text in Nag Hammadi, each prayer of resistance uttered by the trembling faithful, is not history. It is open revolt. So I ask you, if the keepers of your world wear masks shaped by millennia of myth, if the myths themselves are maps and warnings and veiled alarms, do you see a story? Or do you sense the memory of an ongoing struggle pulsing in secret just outside the world you trust? And still, sifted through dust and silence, they watch from below. It was never a legend. It was a warning scribbled in ash and veiled in the trembling breath of the first initiates. The Gnostics called them Archons, cosmic wardens. Rulers, they said, yes, but not of divine origin. No, these were jailers draped in stolen light, architects of the labyrinth called reality. In the Nag Hammadi texts preserved beneath desert sands for almost 2 millennia, the Gospel of Philip and the Apocryphon of John whisper of these cosmic impostors, these shadows posing as kings. Their names shift like mirages: Yaldabaoth, the blind Sabaoth, Astaphaios. 7 in the ancient coding echoing, the chthonic planets across Babylonian and Hellenistic skies. Feel the echo as if the warning vibrates through crystal veins buried beneath the earth. Flickers of memory ripple through the mind, half remembered, half inherited. The Archons are not simply figures in parchments, they are felt like a headache after prophecy, like static beneath prayer. Their signatures are traced in the geometry of laws, the knots in the tapestry of fate. Step back, the story does not begin in dusty caves, nor in the Gnostic temples of Rome and Alexandria. The suspicion, the dread, these seeds were sown earlier. Babylon's Enuma Elish tells of gods who rule the world by decree and disaster. Hebrew prophecy and Daniel sketches, throne rooms in heaven filled with mysterious watchers ambiguous in their allegiance. In the Book of Enoch, the watchers descend, and metal guardians turned wardens, a record submerged in both myth and silence. These stories, these layers, gave the Gnostics their architecture of suspicion. What if the beings above us, the ones who move fate, are not saviors but scavengers? When the Gnostic vision crystallized in the 1st and 2nd centuries CE, it was not simply rebellion. It was revelation with the force of rupture. To them, the Archons were not noble intermediaries, but tyrants forged by the Demiurge, a lesser god drunk on creation and ignorance. In the Apocryphon of John, the Archons entrap the soul with illusion, weaving flesh and fate to keep the inner spark, the divine eon, from remembering its brilliance. Each day, each law, each temptation, is another iron link on the prison gate. The soul is wrapped not only in flesh but in silence. A forgetting deliberately imposed a script recited by rote until the actor forgets himself. Magic to the Gnostic was not fireworks or illusion, but resistance. In hidden rites traced in marginalia and forbidden scrolls, some invoked angelic names or practiced ascetic fasting as counterspells disarming archonic powers by refusing the game. Others shaped labyrinthine symbols, abracadabra abraxas, which some scholars like those interpreting the magical papyri trace to ancient Gnostic hands. Symbols become keys, and to name the Archon was to steal a sliver of his mask and to loosen one's chains. Sacred words spoken in secret reverberated like tuning forks against the walls of the unreal. You cannot touch the Archons, but you know their pressure. The hush before sleep, the sudden doubt that is not your own. If these cosmic rulers are still at work behind the veils of mind and matter, what names have they taken now? If you closed your eyes and reached into memory, would you know the feel of your prison? Or are you still enthralled by the rulers who wrote your story? Listen. Behind the noise, can you hear a thread snapping far below the surface? And still they watch from below. This is no bedtime story. The Archons do not whisper comfort, they radiate control. This is the thread that winds from shattered clay tablets to silicon screens, that behind the world's veils hidden hands shape destiny, not for freedom but for containment. Gnostic texts like the Nag Hammadi codices did not merely describe these Archons, they indicted them. Spirits of tyranny, agents of limits, rulers of the cosmic order, but never of the soul. It was never a legend, it was a warning. In the Gospel of Philip, unearthed from Nag Hammadi's Egyptian sands, they are named crafty architects erecting a counterfeit world, trapping divine sparks in matter and flesh. Their power, not bombs or coins, but illusions, layers upon layers of narrative and lost shadow and spectacle. The Gnostics called them the gatekeepers, authorities set over each planet, each realm, each rung of the mind's ascent. They were not simply obstacles, but living equations woven into the invisible scaffolding of existence, each vibration, a lock, each ritual, a silent decree. Yet their faces shift through each age. In late antiquity, the Archons wore the mantles of Babylonian planetary gods and Persian demons, their names inscribed in cuneiform and incantation alike. Each star, each cycle, a hidden governance. Later in the shadows of history, their image cleaved into dark angels in Christian imagination, fallen powers presiding over empire and creed, then mutated into the principalities and powers Paul names in Ephesians 6:12, whose battle, he said, was not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces tangled in the latticework of the heavens. In the echoing bathhouses and moonlit sanctuaries of the Middle Ages, their presence flowed through Kabbalistic diagrams, Sitra Atra, the other side, interpreted as the very architecture of adversity. Students of history see a transmutation, not a vanishing act but a change of masks across time's stage. In the age of enlightenment, technological marvels replaced thrones of fire and iron, yet suspicion evolved in lockstep with progress. Who really governs? The echo resounds from the Gnostic cave to modern boardrooms and digital panopticons. Clocks replaced sunwheels, algorithms replaced angels, but the invisible hand remains. Scholars like Elaine Pagels have shown that the mythic structure of Archons, malevolent rulers hiding truth and forcing ignorance, creeps, morphs, replicates across conspiracy lore, from Illuminati whispers to the hidden hand of the deep state. The story remains that power, real power, always wears the mask of benefactor, but craves your spirit's submission. Is this suspicion merely an echo of ancient myth? Or does the Archon symbol simply name something eternal, a law etched not in stars, but in the architecture of collective memory? The Gnostic fire beckons. If the rulers never change, what will it take for the ruled to awaken? Are we excavating old nightmares, or are we numbing the chains we still wear? Beneath the noise of information, beneath the programmed spectacle, do you feel the subtle pulse, the forgotten tremor of something ancient waiting? And still, they watch from below. A forbidden truth pulses beneath our digital dreams and cinematic visions, one that sputters to life, flickers, and haunts us from the silver screen to the printed page. In a world obsessed with heroes and monsters, there are icons lurking behind the icons. Rulers not of flesh and bone, but of mind, of story, of soul. They are the Archons. In Gnostic lore, guardians of deception, lords of the middle worlds, the architects of the shadow games we mistake for fate. You have seen their symbols carved in pixel and prose, but you did not recognize the mark. The ancient ones called them cosmocrators, ordering stars and justice by shifting constellations. Their presence encoded in Babylonian tablets, later veiled by church council and imperial edict. The memory remains spiraling like a golden ratio, hidden in plain sight, a face behind a mask, a cipher scrawled onto the blueprints of a city. Let us descend from the Nag Hammadi library, unearthed in Egypt's desert silence, 1945. The hypostasis of the Archons, whispers of cosmic puppet masters who shape reality with invisible hands. Hierarchies echo in fallen marble and shattered scrolls, but their stations were never erased, only submerged like Atlantis in the collective dream. The names are old yet echo in the neon liturgy of the Matrix, where Agent Smith becomes a digital demiurge sculpting reality's prison. Or in Philip K. Dick's Eloaios, where the Archons mutate into authorities of mind and world, trapping sparks beneath the machinery of empire. Even Gnosticism's forbidden cosmological drama twists behind the twisted corridors of video games like Control, where lawless bureaucratic entities, faceless and omnipresent, splinter sanity with their claws. Shakespeare himself felt this machinery, writing of the time's plague, hinting at principalities that bind and blur the real. Each echo is an evolution. Where ancient Gnostics saw astral wardens curbing the soul's ascent, beings like Yaldabaoth spun from Sophia's crisis and chronicled in the Apocryphon of John, modern mythmakers see system administrators, shadow governments, AI overlords. Patterns repeat. The form mutates, but the code remains, power hidden behind power. Divinity obscured by law and order, the watcher behind the watcher's eye. An interpretation stirs beneath these pop culture reflections. Why does the image return? Because every age needs its Archon. The postmodern world, saturated in surveillance, finds its echo in the old warnings. We live amid psychodramas scripted by hidden hands, as ancient as the Gnostic assemblies, and as new as your last Netflix binge. Each blockbuster becomes a prism refracting something impossible to name, yet intimately felt, a vibration you recognize in your bones. Yet the question thunders across time when we cheer the rebels, the hackers, the seekers who break the system's chains. Do we recognize we are replaying an old and sacred heresy? Or do the Archons still laugh unseen at how we mistake spectacle for awakening? The curtain shudders. The rulers still lurk. Their silence is not absence, it is permission. Will you see through the story or be ruled by it? And still, they watch from below. Let me tell you a riddle that trembles through history, an unsettling whisper they hoped you. Never hear the Archons are not just nightmares stitched from old myth, nor devils penned in the dust of forgotten grimoires. They are the question hidden in every command, the hand behind every locked door. Scholars today dig through the ashes, determined to strip these rulers of their dreaded mystery. But what if reason is just another veil they wear? The name, Archon letter 1F00 Rochile Megan U. Echoes from the ancient courts of Athens and the thrones of Gnostic fantasy. In the texts found at Nag Hammadi, we see their faces emerge authorities, rulers, cosmic border guards, neither angels nor demons but oppressive engines of fate. The Apocryphon of John names them shudders with their power, describes their relentless attempts to bind the human soul. Yet the world's classrooms whisper instead myth, allegory, misunderstanding. For every secret revealed, academia folds it back beneath definitions, sometimes mercifully, sometimes like closing a sarcophagus. Close your eyes and listen. The halls of Alexandria, heavy with incense and argument, carried the first debates. Archon as legal magistrate, guardian of cities, then suddenly as puppet master of stars. In the rigid latticework of Timaeus, Plato mapped cosmic order, a grid of rulers setting planets in motion. The Gnostics, watchers on the edge, seized these patterns, reversed the current, claimed those rulers were jailers, not guides. The vibration shifted, not just cosmic music, but a discord meant to drown you. Historians point out that Archon was just a Greek term for magistrate, a bureaucratic ruler, never a cosmic tyrant, until Gnostic visionaries reprogrammed its meaning. Was this transformation a revolt against empire, saturnine bureaucracy, transfigured into metaphysical straitjacket? Or was it a rage against the brute machinery of the cosmos, as the treatises of Adonaios warned? Gnostics believing creation itself was a trap. Pause. Are we seeing archons or the shadow of our own fear projected upon authority itself? Modern interpreters tracing the tangled lines from Babylon to Alexandria mutter that this devil as administrator was a common motif. Yet in the Gospel of Philip, archons are not dismissed, they are dismantled, named unmasked, stripped of borrowed power. Some scholars, such as Elaine Pagels, urge caution. The archon's threat is half literal, half psychological, a symbol of systems that crush, of mind-forged chains, perhaps, rather than extraterrestrial jailers. But can a symbol become a cage if enough souls believe in it? So then, if the academic near removal of archons into mere symbol is another layer of control, whose myth are we living? When you hold a coin stamped by empire or sign a decree, are you serving an archon or merely echoing the shape of ancient power? And when you close this book, close this video, close your eyes, will you glimpse the archon's mask or your own reflection staring back through time? The ritual isn't over. The hourglass still turns. And somewhere beneath the hush, the watchers remain,